Hi friends, it's Tiffany from Daisy Farm Crafts, and today I'm going to do a beginner tutorial for a blanket that uses the herringbone half stitch. This is a blanket that my daughter Nicolina made, and I'll have definitely more pictures on our website of the stripe pattern, but it's really, really cute, very modern. And this is the herringbone half stitch. So I'm going to teach you how to make that today. All right, let's get started. So this is just her 5th blanket that she's ever made. We were counting up, and a lot of things are getting better as you go along and keep practicing your crochet. Her tension stayed a little bit better, but we still need to work on her corners. You know, this is really common that they get stretched out here on your base chain. So I'm going to go over a few things that maybe will help you, and especially when we add the border. It's so easy to get extra stitches, or the sides tend to widen out on you. Okay. But this is all herringbone half. So the yarn that she used is called Hygge Charm by Red Heart. And it is a 4-weight acrylic. It kind of has this matte finish to it with just the tiniest of little sparkles. So that was kind of fun. It's medium 4-weight. I'm going to be using an eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter. This is my Susan Bates Comfort Grip, and I just buy these at Joann's. They're not very expensive, like $2 or $3, and I love them. They seem to grab the yarn for me just a little bit better. But anyway, let's just start with a sample swatch so you can get the stitch down. Okay, so start with a slip knot, which you can make this any way you would like. But basically, that's how I do a slip knot. And we will start with, there's really no, you can start with any number of chains. Sorry, let's go like that. On your hook. There's no pattern repeat for this. So I think a nice sample swatch will be 20 chains. So I'm just going really slow in case you're still a beginner and learning how to chain. I'm going to count and get 20 of these made. All right, so for the herringbone half stitch, let's start in the 3rd chain from the hook. So we never count this loop that's on the hook. We start with the next stitch. 1, 2. We want to work underneath this 3rd loop. There's lots of places where you can, but if you're a beginner, let's just start under that top loop right there. We yarned over first before I inserted the hook. Now I'm yarning over again, and I'm going to pull back through, but I'm going to stop right there and continue pulling through the 1st loop. Then I'll yarn over again and pull through 2. So this is just a little bit different than a double crochet stitch. We yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull a loop, back through, and continue pulling through the 1st loop. Then yarn over and pull through 2. Okay, let me show that to you one more time. I yarned over, insert my hook, yarn over, pull back through, and then continue pulling through just 1. Then yarn over and pull through 2. All right, I will finish this stitch in the top loop of each of those chains all the way to the end. All right, I finished working across the whole row. So your little chain should look like that. And how you'll know that you pulled back through is you've got all this little row of these little bumps. That's what's unique to the herringbone half. And they kind of slant one way. Okay, now we will chain, and I just like to just chain 1. You can chain 2 if you feel like it, but you're going to have those chains hanging out on the side because I like to go ahead and work in this very first stitch. I don't like to have those turning chains count as a stitch and work into the next one. I personally like to work right here into this first stitch. So then I will work the herringbone stitch again, whoops, in each stitch across the row. Okay, so this is a stitch marker, and what I mean is when we return back down, this very stitch, first one that we made, will be the stitch that we need to work into. So sometimes on the return pass, when you're looking at it from the other side, it can be confusing. So just mark that so that you know that when you return, that's where your stitch will go. All right, so continue working on down the row. And actually, I should have done that when I turned, but hopefully you'll be able to see that that's your last stitch, the last little V that's looking at you. Okay, keep on working down the row. Another tip as you're practicing is make sure that you have 18, that you've worked 18. You know, we started with 20 chains, but those first 2 were kind of our getting us started going, you know, down the row. So we really have just 18 stitches that we're working. So here we go. Let's chain 1 and turn. And let's work right into that very first stitch. And if you'd like to mark this stitch right now, you can. I don't have another little stitch marker handy. And let's just keep going, because then you'll clearly see it at the other end of the row. But that's your last stitch. Okay, so basically this is the stitch that's used for this entire blanket. I will keep working, about 6 rows of this, and then I really want to show you how to introduce a color. Here I am at the end of that row that I marked, you know, that first stitch. So I'll just remove the stitch marker, work the last stitch, chain 1 and turn. I'll work this first stitch. And then if you need to, you know, take the time and go ahead and mark it until you're really comfortable knowing where your last stitch is. Because when you are working on a blanket that's, you know, 150 chains across, you don't want to have to go count 150 chains to make sure you got all of your stitches in. Much easier to just know where that last stitch goes. Okay, I'm working on row 4 here. I'm going to go and work 2 more rows, and then let's get a new color introduced. All right, I just finished the 6th row, and you can kind of tell that 2 rows together are this bigger portion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe that helps you when you're counting. Here's the last stitch that's marked. I'm going to remove that marker, and I will just work the first little step of the stitch, and I'm going to stop right there. Then I will lay the new color of yarn over the hook and maybe make this tail towards the back. Just lay it over, pull it through so that then you can grab that the tail that you'll need. Chain 1 and turn. Work right into that first stitch with the new color. That's all there really is to adding color. Now in this pattern, you will cut after you add a color change. So what that means is that we can pull out a tail maybe 9 inches worth, because you're I like to have plenty of yarn to work with, or even more. I guess I do even more to weave in. I like to have plenty. So I go ahead and cut that off. I'm through with this peachy color. What was the name of this one? I can't remember. Let's see. Meteor? They called it Meteor. That's the name of that one. And I'll just work some more rows in the white. So now you know how to add the yarn. You know this stitch. The next thing I will show you is how to weave in the ends with your tapestry needle. And then we will get to work on the border. So I have 6 rows of this peachy color, peachy pink, 6 rows of the cream. I want to show you one thing, how what the back of the work looks like. So it's not as easy to see the rows, you know, in those little couplets, because this is a row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there definitely is a wrong side and a right side to this pattern. So if you're wondering how to count the rows in the pattern with all the stripes, maybe really pay close attention to what it looks like. It's much easier to count blocks of 2 when the blanket's facing you this way. All right, so here's our last stitch. Let's pretend you've got your whole blanket done. Go ahead and pull out that loop and clip it off. Pull that string through and you have completed the blanket. So what you'll need is a tapestry needle, this large eye and a blunt tip. Thread your yarn through there, and weaving in the ends is just a matter of taking your needle in and out of any stitch. There really is no wrong way to do this other than keep your tension nice and neat and weave in, make lots of passes in all sorts of different directions so that the thread or the yarn is hidden and it is secure. And hopefully on this blanket there won't be too many ends for you to weave in. But I do want to say something about color chains and being a beginner. Sometimes crochet, when you're very first starting out, it might seem so monotonous, and working towards a color change can be kind of like a goal setting activity. It's like, okay, I've got 5 more rows and then I get to change color. So I like to have color changes in beginner blankets to keep you motivated to keep going on the project. But I also really, really 100% encourage you to start with this practice swatch. Get the stitch down before you start, you know, a big long 100 chain, and then you've done all this work and your sides aren't straight. That is I guess my other tip is to definitely start with a practice swatch. Just so you have a smaller piece of, you know, of fabric to work with and to really learn how to change the colors and keep the sides straight. Okay, so I think you're seeing how I'm just going back and forth, hiding these ends the best way I can. And this yarn is pretty, I like this matte. It's not like a shiny acrylic. This is acrylic, but it's kind of have a matte finish to it. So it's a little bit fuzzy. It's doing a good job sticking to itself. So these stitches aren't gonna, this end is not gonna slip free. All right, I'll get the rest of them woven in, and then let's pull up a loop and start your border. So I'm starting with that right side, you know, the even stitches looking at me. That's kind of the wrong side, or uneven. There we go. Where I can see those groups. Let's start in this bottom right-hand corner. right there. Let's find that corner stitch and go ahead, lay your yarn over the hook just like you were changing colors before. Pull up a loop. Got to make sure I have a long enough tail. And I go ahead and just chain one to secure it right there. Now we will work one herringbone right into that very same space. Okay, that kind of counts for our one at the end of this first row. Now we'll work one more, and this is what's so hard. Just do your best to try and find the end of the row. We want to work one stitch per the end of each row. So we know that we have these, this was 2 rows. So here's our 2 stitches. Now let's go over here, and I think I'm going to work right here. There's just no definite place for you to put your hook. You get to decide, because it is lots of places. The most important thing is to do it evenly, and to do it, oh, look at that. Sorry, my yarn. I'll come over here. There we go. I was pulling up some extra fibers and it was making it catch. Okay, there we go. We just want to make sure we work 2 per the sides of the stitches as evenly as possible. Now we're to the white. Let's work 2 for that row. Here we are down here. Okay, now for approaching the corner, we're definitely going to have one in the corner, so make your 1, and that very first one in the corner counts for the end of this other row. Just like that, but we need to get extra stitches around the corner. So let's work 2 more. And that helps us get around the corner, just like that. Now, I always like to stop and kind of take a look, because when you're working down the way end of your blanket, let me show you on my daughters what's really hard when you're a beginner is that the sides just want to split on you, or they stretch out or whatever. Sometimes if you find that your tension is too loose, switch down to a smaller hook. That kind of can help you keep the sides. But if you have to skip over, say your tension, like I wish, my daughter's tension at the very beginning of her blanket was really loose, and then she kind of got tighter as she went. You can make up for it on the border. Go ahead and just maybe work 1 per the 2 rows and cinch it up. That's the beauty of handmade, I think, is that you can kind of make up the difference there. I'm trying to see if, just in case, because as beginners, your stitches are not going to be the same all throughout the blanket. It just takes lots and lots of practice. Now, when you go along the top of the blanket, it's really fairly easy, because now you can see the top of each stitch. So work your way to the next corner, work 3 stitches for the corner, work 1 stitch per the end of each row, and then I'll meet you back and show you how to join the round and turn. I just worked across the bottom of that row, and I wanted to make sure you understood that, this was our chain row. There should be 2 loops. You just kind of work underneath those 2 loops of the bottom side of that starting chain. That's where you'll work. So here's where we very first pulled up a loop. I'll work 1 more in there. Oops, forgot to yarn over. work my final herringbone in there. And do you see this little V? That was that first stitch that we did. Go ahead and we'll slip stitch to that. Just trying to find anywhere in there to slip stitch to. And now let's just keep working. Let's just keep working on around. So go ahead and chain one like we did. And let's work one so that we have that middle one when we come back. And then continue working in the same direction. It really gives a nice little, a nice look to your blanket. You'll see after we get going. To have the herringbone stitch look all the same, have those little bubbles, I don't know, those little, what would you call those? That first knot down there, all on the same side. So it kind of sets the border off. You definitely, if you want to chain and turn because you like that look better, go ahead. That's fine too. But I just think as a beginner, it's easier sometimes. Just keep going. Just keep going around and don't worry about a thing. We just are having you work 2 rounds, but you can make as many rounds as you would like. Just always increase around the corners. So we'll still do the same thing. Remember, I worked those 3 half double crochets right here as the corner. In the second one I made, which is right here. Now that's where I'll do my 3 again and get it to fan out around that corner. 1, 2. There's my 3rd one. Keep working around that corner. You see how it kind of gives you this nice little, I don't know, I like seeing those all on the same side. And then the back is just a little bit more flat look. And it looks good too. Okay, so I'll just continue working over, and do remember to slip stitch and then just tie off your end exactly how we did it before and weave those final ends in. Okay, so I hope this really gives you a basic understanding. This is a great beginner project for learning the herringbone half stitch. And we will have more details on our website. We put that link down in the description if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, you've already found this blanket and you are on our website, and hopefully, you know, you will have the chart for the color changes and show you how many rows of each color, and you can make this darling blanket, which I think would be really cute, bigger for a college, you know, a graduation gift, or this could be a cute baby blanket as well. Okay, thank you so much for coming by our channel and for coming by our website, daisyfarmcrafts.com. We are a mom and daughter team. I'm Tiffany, my daughter's Hannah, and of course I have my daughter Nicolina who's learning how to crochet, and so is my daughter Haley, and we just love sharing what we are making. So thanks for coming by.